40 years with the Fort Worth Diocese
This year.
This year.
August of this year.
And I believe you preside over, what, 27 counties in this particular area?
25,000 square miles. And
Good gracious.
Bigger than some states, maybe bigger than Illinois.
it's bigger than where I came from.
Well, we certainly want to welcome you this morning. If everybody will please stand and then remain standing after the invocation for our pledges.
And again, thank you for this opportunity and privilege.
Thank you.
God is love. In the desire to make us share in His love, He sent His Son into the world to come to our aid, and in gentle kindness to help those who are weak, sick, or unfortunate. In His great love for all of us, Christ said that whatever we do for the least among us, we do for Him. He called those who show mercy blessed of His Father and promised them eternal life. We pray then for God's greatest blessings on the Tarrant County Commissioners and all gathered here this day. Let us pray. Blessed are you, Lord God of mercy, who through your Son gave us a marvelous example of charity and the great commandment of love for one another. Send down your blessings upon all gathered here this day, who generously devote themselves to service of all here in our county. When they are called on in times of need, let them faithfully serve you and their neighbor and all whom they are called to serve, and bless them and keep them safe this day and always in the new year. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Bishop, again, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Manius, agenda announcements.
Your Honor, members of the court, we have one announcement this morning. That's under the Administrator section, item 8A1. We're going to hold that for 1 week. We have a court policy that requires a unanimous vote on all legislative programs, so we will be holding that. Also, Your Honor, if I might ask Suzanne Henderson to come forward. She has an introduction to make to the court at this time.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, in Tarrant County, we pride ourselves with our employees. We know they're our most valuable asset, and we have the best employees in this state. And along those same lines, I'd like to recognize my staff this morning for an award they received. We have Patrick Jordan, who's manager of my vital records, and Kelly Lawhorn. She's assistant manager. Every year at the annual conference, the Texas State Department of Health Services awards registrars of the state when they've done outstanding service and met certain criteria. So this year, Tarrant County received the 5-star award. So please help me thank Patrick Jordan and Kelly Lawhorn.
Congratulations, and thank you all again for all your work, all that you do. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of January the 20th.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Proclamations and resolutions. Commissioner Fickus, I believe you have a resolution today.
We do. We have a resolution of appreciation to the Texas Wrangler 4-H Club from Southlake, and this is for their success in earning the top honor at the state hippology contest held in Kaufman, Texas. I'd like to read this. Whereas the Texas Wrangler 4-H Club was formed in the city of Southlake 3 years ago, providing hands-on learning experiences for youth as they pursue their interest in horses. And whereas after weeks of intensive study, the club became the first team from Tarrant County to earn top honors at the state hippology contest held in Kaufman County in June. And whereas the Texas Wrangler 4-H Club went on to participate in the Western Nationals in Denver, Colorado this month in January 2009, where it placed 7th overall. And whereas the club's study covered all aspects of the horse in preparation for the week-long competition, which included judging horses in a halter class, judging horses in a performance class, a written test of 100 questions covering such things as identifying breeds, color, care, traits of different horses and bits, horse anatomy, farrier equipment, English and Western riding styles, horse racing, rodeo events, and harness racing, followed by 10-station testing their skills on the skeletal and digestive system and leg and hoof anatomy. Now, therefore, it be resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, join with the families and friends of the Texas Wrangler 4-H Club in congratulating them on their outstanding achievements and wish them well in their continued pursuit of excellence. It is witnessed, therefore, we have herefore set our hand and cause the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed on this 27th day of January. May I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I'm going to
Yes,
ask, go ahead, Randy.
I have some discussion, if I could.
Absolutely.
I just want to say again, look at these 4-H students. Aren't they fantastic? And the winners, too. Let me also say that they are showing in the Fort Worth Stock Show as we speak, and they are going to have projects in the Tarrant County Junior Livestock Sale, which is coming up shortly.
Here it comes. Here it comes.
And
Here it
for
comes.
those of you who have
Here it comes.
made your contribution to the pool to buy these kids' animals today, Glenn, Roy, GK, and others, is the day to pay.
You didn't mention me. I already given back.
But congratulations to y'all. I look forward to seeing you two at the Junior Livestock Show.
Also, I want to thank their sponsor, Doreen Bruton, who has been involved with, Doreen, why don't you stand up? She's with the camera. She has been involved with the youth in South Lake and equine, for years. Her and her husband have been in South Lake, and they are a true asset to our community. So let me come down. Why don't y'all come up here to the podium?
I assume hippology has something to do with horses.
It does. Yeah, until we got into that long paragraph, I was wondering if you were studying
We're gonna
hippos.
Take a picture. Here you go. Let me, why don't y'all take this? One of y'all. Somebody. 2 of you. 3 of you. Get in here. I'll get in here in the middle. You take our picture. Now, we got a certificate. That goes to the school. We got a certificate for each one of you. Katie? Jim? Shane? Hayden? And Grady. Thank y'all so much, okay? Y'all have a great.
Congratulations again. We appreciate y'all coming out. Good luck in the stock show and also in the junior stock show coming up. Board members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval of consent agenda.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, if we could go to item 2 under the administrator section. We're requesting that the court approve an order with respect to 4 Over Inc. project, which authorizes the county judge to execute a certificate approving the local option of a tax-exempt industrial bond financing for the 4 Over Inc. project in an amount not to exceed $7.5 million through the Mission Economic Development Corporation. What this does, it meets the requirements of the IRS code, which means that while Mission is going to be issuing the debt itself, there's a project that's going to be funded out of those funds, which is going to be in Arlington. We have received a letter acknowledging our HUD policy. Also, we have been notified that this property, that there's no known impediment on the deed that would not allow any type of medical or governmental function to occur on this property. Staff is requesting approval.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the court.
Mr. Rock, would you like to cover your item now or after? Come on down.
Good morning. The District Attorney's Office is requesting approval of an interlocal agreement between Tarrant County Narcotics Unit and the City of Arlington with the Arlington Police Department, and that would bring 8 officers and 1 supervisor into the fold of the Tarrant County Narcotics Unit.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Also on your next item, the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office is asking for the creation of a bank account in J.P. Morgan Chase, moving the account of the DEA funds from the Wells Fargo account under the county treasury. And we had, with discussions with the auditor, we feel this is the best thing to do, and we're requesting approval to create that account.
Auditor's office does agree with this.
Yes.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Renee, will that, is she over there?
She's not there.
I've looked. She's not.
I guess the question goes back to the collateral issue that we had back in our housing meeting. I'm assuming that money will always be guaranteed, or there'll be collateral pledged on the funds that are in there, because those funds sometimes exceed the $250,000.
Yes, sir.
If in fact there's a need for collateral, then we will make sure that it does have collateral. However, because J.P. Morgan Chase has been a participant in the TARP, here's Renee. She can answer that question.
I was listening, but I couldn't answer you from where I was. Sorry. You were asking about the collateral. We've been contacted by the bank, and they're looking to remove the collateral from our accounts, and we'll be bringing that to the court for your further consideration and discussion. When the Fed passed the new rules, and as GK was saying, under the TARP plan, basically any account that's non-interest bearing is now qualified to be covered under FDIC coverage without limit. But there's some hoops that supposedly the bank has to go through. We've been working with Ray. They have to have something, for instance, posted in their lobby, and they hadn't posted that yet the last time we sent someone over to look, but they're in the process of posting it. The banking officer, Mr. Wilson, says that certainly they're not in any hurry, but that is their intent.
Are we prohibited by law from being able to put that in an interest-bearing account?
We've not put a lot of that money in interest-bearing accounts because of the fact that it's not our money. It would have to then be passed on to the entity that we collected the money for and held it for. Certainly, again, there's some discussion that we need to have related to this, but that is a change that's out there that they have contacted us about. Right now, we're still fully secured. We're fully collateralized as per our agreement. Our contract, though, our agreement requires that they collateralize our accounts as in excess as related to what FDIC coverage doesn't cover. So if FDIC coverage covers it, then they don't have to provide the collateral, is my understanding.
So if they are able to pull down the collateral, what is our security? Is it the
FDIC.
full faith and credit of the federal government? Or
FDIC.
And the printing presses therein.
Yes.
Is it unlimited?
Yes.
Oh,
If it's
non-interest-bearing
not a
account.
non-interest-bearing account, again, that meets certain other requirements, whatever those requirements are.
I still want to go back to this non-interest-bearing account. And I guess the question that I would ask is when you say we would have to delve that interest out or divide that interest out among all of the entities who would be receiving money as a result of the money that's in there, what would be the likelihood of all those entities agreeing that we would just leave that money in there and go toward the operations of the unit?
There's a lot of different entities. Over the years, we've always had earnings credit because we didn't have an interest-bearing account, so we would have what were called earnings credit. We've used those earnings credits to pay for other printed checks. There's never been any service charges that have been paid with dollars out of our account because we've used these earning credit. Mr. Patel's now here. He has more detail even than I do. But the odds of getting all those people to agree, I mean, there's a lot of money that comes in and goes out of that account, whether it's grant money, whether it's,
Yeah, I mean, of course, the biggest chunk of it's tax office money that,
Right.
and you'd have to distribute that. There are the earnings, the amount of interest, obviously the amount of interest that is being earned on short-term investments is extremely low now anyway. So to convert those to interest-bearing accounts would probably end up in less revenue than the fees that are being offset.
but we're talking about if they were interest-earning accounts, then maybe
The
this
collateral would,
collateral could still apply.
there's a limit on, I don't remember the exact, there's a rate specified in the regs that says if it pays less than X percent, then it is deemed to be non-interest bearing for the purposes of the coverage. So I'm not sure that we could get enough interest to qualify as an interest bearing account. I don't know that for a fact.
And we were going to bring this to the court. Like I said, the bank's been having dialogue with my office, and it's my understanding they've contacted the tax assessor as well in regards to this. I don't know who else they've spoken with, whether they've contacted any of the other fee offices that also bank with the depository. But we have been working with them in the DA's office, and we plan to bring it to you when we had a few more of these questions answered. So I don't have answers to all your questions
Well,
today.
we just look at it, if we know it's coming in the next couple of
Right.
weeks.
And we do support the inclusion in the depository of the funds that Mr. Shugart is asking for your approval on today.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Facilities, Mr. Phillips.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is requested that Commissioners Court approve Amendment Number 2 to the Gideon Toll contract for architectural and engineering services related to the jail project that was included in the 2006 Capital Improvement Program.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
It is requested that Commissioners Court first approve additional architectural and engineering services performed by Arthur Wyman Architects that were necessary to finalize the construction documents for the 1895 courthouse site improvement project, and then we'd like the court to terminate Arthur Wyman Architects' contract until funding is available to bid the next phase of the project.
Yeah, I did detect that past tense in the statement you just made. Were necessary? Have they already done the contracts?
We've already completed the 4 or 5 different things that were necessary. One was a requirement for the city of Fort Worth to do a drainage study on Houston Street so we could add some ADA parking while they were reviewing the plan documents. That was a civil engineer's work. Also, I asked the architect and designers to look at some sustainability ideas using the sub-basement for a cistern to irrigate, for rainwater, to irrigate the property. We're probably going to bid that as an alternate when we bid the project. And also ask them to look at some drip irrigation ideas for the project. So,
But why would you terminate the contract?
Commissioner, we plan on asking, because of the next phase of the project is approximately $6.4 million, and we don't have that available today. We do plan to ask for grant money again for the state of Texas Historical Courthouse Preservation Program, and that's going to probably be in November or so. And so I probably wouldn't be asking for that $6.4 million in FY10 budget. So we would probably wait until FY11.
So then we have to go back through the whole process again of hiring an architect.
I hope not. That's not my plan. I would hope we would probably need to look at what the scope of services would be at that time. The documents we have today, Commissioner, are ready to go to the City of Fort Worth for final plan reviews. They are ready to go to the Texas Historical Commission for their permitting, and we'll be ready to set those on the shelf for the HVAC installation in this building, also the demolition of the Civil Courts building, and the restoration of the west elevation. We have about 50% of our granite at the Cold Springs jail on site. The other 50% is being fabricated,
And when it's been a year and a half to get those 300 pieces of granite here. It's a lot of that stuff's hand fabricated.
Would you reinitiate a contract prior to submitting those plans for approval? And the reason I'm coming to that question is that, let's say you submit them for approval, and there's some changes that have to be made. Who are you going to get to make them?
We would
terminate your contract.
We would probably, Commissioner, what we would do is look at what's going to be required for the plan review and ask for additional, essentially it would be construction administrative services, architectural engineering, and some minimal design. But I do expect we would have a contract in place when those documents go back to the city in a year and a half or so, whenever that is. Because there's no other work available for the architect to do other than some minor stuff they're doing today. But I would hope we could use Arthur Wyman again, but it would terminate the contract so we can get it off his books and move forward. Because this
Is there
project.
something that requires us to take him off the contract?
No, sir.
Well, we've got a guarantee then if we leave the contract existing, don't we?
I think we would probably need to look at the fee schedule for that because of we would do it anyway, regardless if we stay with his contract or not, because of the number of trips it's probably going to take because of the demolition. We've looked at various demolition options. It looks like we'll be going with a surgical demolition for the civil courts, and that demolition consultant he'll use will have to make several more trips than we first initiated.
Are we going to try to save the styrofoam for the mausoleums across the street?
We do plan to, as an alternate, to look at the saving the angels.
Can we put them on the mausoleum across the street?
But basically, I do expect the construction administrative section of this is probably left in his contracts about $60,000 or $70,000. I would expect it to be more than that when we actually did the work. I think it's probably going to be almost double that because of the additional trips and effort that I've learned it's going to take to do this project.
If we don't terminate this contract, are there fees that they will continue to earn?
No, sir.
Can we just suspend it?
We can. I was just terminating just so we could have a stopping point and a startup point later, but we could just leave it like this and pay him. What I was going to do then, we're owing him about $8,900 on the finishing the construction documents, which is just about to wrap that up, and we can set those on a shelf, and when the funding's available, we can go from there.
That's what I'd like to see us do.
Okay. Let me.
And let me ask you one other thing. Now, let's go back to the angels for just a minute. That's sandstone, isn't it?
It's Indiana limestone.
Limestone. It's about 70. Well, what do you plan on doing with these angels once you salvage them?
I think the
Put 'em up
architect
on
the
eBay.
architect we picked for the civil courts building showed one of them angels in the lobby. Now I don't know whether that'll end up happening or not, but there was a really. Yeah, I believe so.
We did some preliminary investigation. We core drilled into the Indiana limestone. It's about 4 inches thick. That overall angel thickness, so those are big blocks that are carved. They're artwork. They're actual sculptures. And some of them are probably 8 to 10 inches thick, and there's 7 per angel. And it'll probably cost around $50,000 to $75,000 per angel to remove it.
How many angels?
4. That's if we don't break any. So if we can, hopefully out of 4, we can
We have
have
to pay for them if we break them.
Hadn't got there yet.
Yeah. We own them, don't we?
They're ours.
They're ours. Well, I'm talking about whoever's going to take them down.
Yeah. Oh.
But they have stainless steel embeds back into the building, and that are probably 12 inches long, so they're on there to stay. So it's going to be somewhat of a challenge to get them off there without tearing them up.
Maybe we ought to take bids to see who would like to have them and let them be responsible for taking them down.
I bet there's a big market for that.
Well, somebody wants to save them.
Commissioner, we will bid those as an ad alternate, so it'll come back to the court as an ad alternate for the work, and you can make that decision at that time. If you'd like, I can rephrase my request to just request the court to approve the additional architectural engineering services performed to complete the construction documents.
So moved.
This is leaving the contract existing.
Leaving.
Yes, sir.
Leaving the contract in place. You need a second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the additional architectural engineering services with Arthur Wyman Architects to finalize the construction documents for the 1895 courthouse site improvement project, period.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
I'd just like to note parenthetically that Mr. Phillips has declared the angels to be art, and as such, they are an asset to this county, and I would not like to see them destroyed.
Yeah, I hope we get to keep the angels. But one of our groups did have that angel sitting in the, I believe, sitting in the lobby of the new civil courts building.
Well, that's one, and we have 4 of them. What are you going to do with the other 4?
Well, it may take all 4 of them
To make one.
Okay. All right.
Come on down, Miss Glenn.
Move to receive and file personnel agenda.
The second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We have one additional item. This item 2, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for community development. Community development actually has 2 employees who are retiring at the end of this month. Their community development program manager, as well as their coordinator. Both of these individuals have 400 vacation hours. The impact of this waiver is approximately $25,464. This will be covered by grant money, so there's no impact to the general fund. We're asking that the waivers be approved February 2nd.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Do we have any way of knowing what our accrued leave time liability is?
Yes, we could certainly, I don't know that today, but yes, we can get that information for you. My guess is it's a lot.
It seems to me that our employees don't take leave time. They
Some
just
do, and
accrue it.
some do and some don't.
Well, and again, a lot of folks use that as kind of a safety valve if they were to become ill or.
Right, since we eliminated the sick leave bucket.
We still have that bucket.
We still have the sick. It's actually, the change that we made to a commissioner was a couple of years ago. It's actually now called sick personal. So we actually, so employees can use it for personal leave if their departments allow it.
As I understand it, we pay up to 400 hours of vacation, accumulated vacation
Correct.
at retirement.
Right.
We don't pay anything over that. And then as far as the sick leave,
It's a prorated schedule.
depending upon how long you've been here, and
And the most
usually
that-
up to a certain percentage, but
Yeah.
usually no more than 50%.
Correct. It's maxed at 50% after you've, I believe, been here 19 years. So, but yeah, we certainly have employees who use their time, and we have those that save it. So, but yes, we can certainly get that to the court.
And, Your Honor, the 400 hours it's really 2 years, the value of 2 years of accrued vacation. And the maximum of that would be 400 hours. There'd be some employees that may have accrued 3 weeks of vacation rather than 5.
But the max is going to be your 400.
The max is
That's the most that we're
400
going to pay out. Correct.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Did we?
No, I don't think we did.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, but we haven't voted. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Jack, you just kind of consented us this week, didn't you?
What a wonderful day this is.
It sure is. Sure is. We can't abuse you up here today.
No copier kind of items today?
Good morning.
We'll be
members
waiting
of the
for you
court.
next week, Jack.
Morning.
We are requesting your approval of an interlocal agreement with the City of Keller related to improvements to Root Snow Drive. This project is included in the 2006 Transportation Bond Program. In October of last year, the Commissioners Court approved a change of scope related to this project.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Renee Lamb will cover the other items for transportation.
Good morning.
Morning. My first item this morning is to request that Commissioners Court approve a resolution in order decreeing public necessity for a public project known as Robertson Road from 10 Mile Bridge Road to approximately 4,000 feet west of Boat Club Road. We ask that court approve also the preliminary plans and authorize our right-of-way section for the acquisition and payment of compensation for the right-of-way.
Is the property owner working with us on that?
Yes, sir. We are working with the property owners. We get calls from them quite often. I don't know that I can rule out condemnation, but they are being very cooperative, and we're in contact with them.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The third item this morning is a request that Commissioners Court consider increasing the maintenance period required for a maintenance bond. Currently, we have a 1-year maintenance bond. We're asking court to increase that to 2 years.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah. I saw an article in the paper
So did I.
where Fort Worth's looking at going to 5 years.
Yes, sir. And I did contact several of the cities in the area and a couple of counties, and most of them have a 2-year. I didn't see anyone with anything greater than that. I think 5 years is excessive. I think 2 years is sufficient if we keep a close eye, and that's what we intend to do, to monitor the maintenance through that 2-year period and notify the contractor early if we see problems and notify the DA if they don't respond to that prior to the 2 years expiring.
But I think Fort Worth is concrete streets, though, aren't they?
Yes, sir. That's where we see the most problem. We have a few concrete streets ourselves, and we're experiencing some of those problems, not to the extent to see Fort Worth is. But I do feel that 2 years is sufficient.
How'd you escape not getting quoted in that article?
I was gone on vacation last week.
I'll have to try that next time. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
I have one other item. My final item today is to ask the court to consider a change in scope for improvements to US 287 frontage roads within the city of Mansfield. This project is included in the 2006 bond program. It was originally submitted as 3 projects, 1 for the frontage road and 2 projects for the Texas turnarounds. TxDOT is handling this project, and this change in scope is related to changes they have requested. They've requested an increase in the pavement depth and a lengthening of the frontage roads. City of Mansfield has asked us to consider this change in scope. They are not asking us to increase our contribution.
I'll move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any appointments today, court members? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius, briefing items.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have one item to bring to you this morning. This is item A concerning the avian flu and the possibility of pandemic flu events in the United States. Ms. Brewer is here to address the court at this time. Maybe not Ms. Brewer. Public Health is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning. Actually, I'm Dr. Parker from Tarrant County Public Health here to address the court. So we'll be rapidly going through the slides, but if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. But I'm trying to give an overview of pandemic influenza and the latest information that we have available. The basics of the influenza virus: birds are the primary host for all flu strains, and the strain is identified by the H and the N surface protein, H standing for hemagglutinin and N standing for neuraminidase. Flu viruses change very rapidly through a number of processes. Genetic drift, which is a continual process. It's a point mutation or change in some of the viral genes. It results in diminished immune response among previously infected infected or immunized individuals. It results in yearly epidemics, and this is the reason the vaccine is updated yearly. This can cause changes in susceptibility to antivirals, as you may have heard in the recent reports. Genetic shift or antigenic shift is an unpredictable development of a new subtype from an animal influenza. And genetic reassortment is a mixing of genetic material from two different viruses co-infected in one host, and one of those hosts may possibly be a pig or a human. And you can see the number of species affected by flu viruses there, and that slide gives an impression of what would happen in a genetic reassortment of the different areas that could happen. Seasonal or interpandemic influenza describes the typical annual winter epidemic of flu. Seasonal interpandemic influenza is caused by H1N1, H3N2, or influenza B at this point.
Okay, back up. What are them H1s, N1s?
H1N1s, that is a specific type of influenza virus. H1 means hemagglutinin 1 and neuraminidase 1 is the protein. It's basically its name. This is Mr. Influenza H1N1.
And same thing with H3? Is that
H3.
Three H's?
No, it doesn't mean there's three H's. That's just the designation of the hemagglutinin. That they have identified that as hemagglutinin surface protein number 3. It's just a different name.
These are proteins in the DNA chain, right?
Yes, different proteins.
Good for you.
Well, we know. I'm certainly happy
Okay,
to find
right
that
ahead.
out.
Okay. The annual or seasonal or interpandemic influenza impact, 5 to 20% of the population may fall ill. An average of over 200,000 hospitalizations, an average of 36,000 deaths, and the economic impact is estimated at $87 billion nationally. Now, a definition of avian influenza. Its name, its surface proteins are H5N1, and it is an infection that is found in birds. Infections can occur in humans, though the risk of infection is generally considered low. H5N1 has been responsible for a pandemic in birds. Of the few avian influenza viruses that have crossed the species barrier to infect humans, H5N1 has caused the largest number of detected cases and death in humans. There are new guidelines. They were published in November of 2008 regarding testing for suspected cases in the United States. This is the virus that you're hearing about. When you hear avian influenza, you're hearing about H5N1. This is the number of human deaths caused by H5N1 to this point. And actually, the information that I took off the WHO website this morning for 2009, there has been 1 case reported in Egypt and 3 in China, and China is reporting 1 death. This is a map showing the presence of H5N1 in wild birds, H5N1 in poultry and wild birds, and H5N1 in humans. As you can see, there have been no H5N1 cases in the United States or the North American hemisphere. Pandemic influenza describes a sporadic, unpredictable worldwide epidemic. And the conditions for a pandemic influenza requires a new viral strain that can infect humans and is associated with a high mortality rate and is easily transmissible from person to person, and a lack of immunity to the new strain in nearly all people. To this point, this is why H5N1 has not caused a pandemic across the globe, is that it's not easily transmissible from person to person. Is a pandemic coming? Yes, it is. Unfortunately, it's unknown when this will occur and what organism will be the source. There have been many pandemics throughout history. The bubonic plague or Black Death in the 1300s, syphilis in the 1500s, and currently the AIDS pandemic. There have been 3 influenza pandemics within the last century. In 1918, there was an H1N1 pandemic. In 1957, there was an H2N2 pandemic. And in 1968, there was an H3N2. The WHO recognizes pandemic phases. Phase 1 is no new human flu virus or subtypes, animal flu viruses that have low risk to human. Phase 2, no human flu virus subtypes, but the animal virus subtypes are high risk to human. Phase 3, human infections with a new subtype. Human-to-human spread is difficult. Phase 4, you have small clusters of human cases, and there's limited human-to-human spread. 5, larger clusters of human cases and improving human-to-human spread. And 6 is the pandemic phase. It's increase and sustained transmission in the general population. You could consider the current avian influenza H5N1 as a phase 4 at this point, between phase 3 and phase 4, with that the human-to-human spread is difficult, but it has been limited. All of the cases of the human contact with H5N1 from person to person has been in close family organization, close family units, where they have also had a significant exposure to the poultry as well.
Excuse me, doctor.
Yes.
You answered your own question unequivocally, that we know a pandemic is coming.
Yes.
How do we know this?
Because it's happened in the past and likely it will repeat itself. To say
That's
that
not evidence.
No, it isn't evidence, but we've had an outbreak in 1918, 1957, and 1962. To say that we've had things in the past and it's not going to happen again isn't evidence either. There's nothing to support that it's not going to happen again. The viruses are constantly changing due to the 3 things that we just mentioned, the genetic drift, shift, and reassortment, and so it will likely be a matter of time before this happens again and there is another pandemic. Also, we can't discount, we can't assume that the next pandemic or the next worldwide infection will be a flu virus. We think that may be what it possibly is, but we don't know what the next new organism may be that will wreak havoc with health across the nation, across the globe.
Yet we're spending all this money planning for a flu pandemic.
Yes, we are, because we do think that's the most likely.
And that's because the last 3 have been flu?
Yes.
1918?
Well, we currently have AIDS. Well, and the AIDS is not an influenza virus; it's a different virus, and they are working. I mean, there is ongoing research regarding AIDS and the treatment of AIDS. Okay. Pandemic flu is different from seasonal flu. It will appear suddenly. No one will have immunity. It will spread quickly across the globe. It may occur in waves, and it could be mild or severe. The potential impact of pandemic flu on human capital: if the new pandemic is similar to the 1957 pandemic, there could be over 200,000 deaths in the United States. If the pandemic is similar in severity to the 1918 pandemic flu, there could be 2 million deaths in the United States. This would be the possible impact of pandemic flu in Tarrant County. As you can see at the top is the attack rate. The attack rate is the portion of the population that is predicted to be exposed and infected with that flu virus. And you can see it goes from 15 to 50%. And I noted on there for you that the attack rate for the 1918 flu was 50%.
I guess the question, then it kind of follows along with what Commissioner Brooks had said. Am I wrong in assuming that in 1918 and in those types of stuff, we were we did not have the technology to be able to react quickly to this, and that given today's technology, that we might be able to react much quicker.
My dad called
through
Yes.
communications.
Yes, I would hope that we would be able to react quicker than they were able to in 1918. The things to be considered, though, is depending on the type of flu that the next which is the result of the next pandemic, antivirals that we currently have may not be effective. The vaccine that we have may not be effective, and likely it won't, because if the vaccine were effective, it wouldn't be causing a pandemic. We would have a base level of immunity within the community because people would have gone and gotten their flu shots. So currently they are working on different antivirals that would possibly have an effect, but at this point we have no new antivirals that are coming out. Other measures would be quarantines, trying to keep people isolated so that they wouldn't spread it to other people would prevent that, and also good hospital care. But the point is that with a new flu strain that would cause a pandemic, most of the standbys that we have right now would not be effective, meaning the antivirals and the vaccine. The bad news and the good news is the bad news is that the pandemic in the birds continues to spread. The H5N1 human-to-human transmission is happening. There is underreporting of flu and flu-like symptoms that could allow for hundreds to become ill before detection occurs. The good news is that we have not had a pandemic in humans yet. The virus has not mutated to facilitate human-to-human transmission easily, and medications are positioned to try to squelch an epidemic. We do have a human use vaccine for H5N1 that was approved by the FDA in 2007. It is owned by the government and is not commercially available. It is intended for inclusion in the SNS, which is the Strategic National Stockpile, that also contains other medications, other antivirals, and other support equipment that would likely be used in the event of a pandemic, meaning ventilators and other things that may be used in a hospital setting. Other medical care options regarding a pandemic would be that the ill and those that are not critical will have to stay home and care for themselves. Only the critical and those requiring ventilator support would be hospitalized due to the limited surge capacity. Nursing home patients would be treated in nursing homes. Homeless persons would likely need to be treated in the existing shelters, and there would likely not be any special treatment centers established as there would not be enough manpower to support such facilities. And I know that sounds very harsh, but what we're talking about, if we go back to the attack rate and look at that, you look at the number of people who would not be available in the hospitals to take care of sick people. It would also be affecting the people in the hospital. It's not that we're talking about that this is a bad flu year. This would be a different flu that no one is exposed to, and possibly affect such a large number of people that infrastructure changes, the way the hospital works, they would not be able to keep up with the capacity of the people who are ill. And the last picture is just a bird with its head under the water instead of in the sand, but it's that we don't know when the next pandemic is coming, but it is important that we do consider it and spend the money now to prepare ourselves for the future. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Ann Salyer-Caldwell.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just want to let you all know what we're doing as far as prevention planning is concerned. Tarrant County Public Health does have responsibility for planning in response to a pandemic, but I think it's important to know that the plans that we're putting in place for a pandemic response would also be used if there was any other major public health threat that occurred in Tarrant County. For example, a radiation exposure, for example, or a bioterrorist attack like anthrax or something like that. So just to let you all know about the Medical Reserve Corps, we have a goal of about 5,000 people. We, at last count, when I turned this in, had 1,324, but we're up to 1,430 now because we just did a big training on Saturday. We have a lot of people who want to be on standby to help public health if there were a problem of large scale, like Dr. Parker was mentioning. We have to work a lot with the partners because there's not enough with the people in public health to take care of things. So we're constantly updating the municipalities and the hospitals, businesses, and so forth. And then we do a lot of exercises. We're all responsible for developing plans, and we have to exercise those plans. And that's always very important. We have lots of big events coming to the area soon, and so those plans are important to not only put in place but to exercise. The big thing that we need the volunteers for is the points of dispensing, the pods, and that's where we would actually administer medication or vaccinations. If there was actually a vaccine for in a pan-flu response, then we would want to be able to get as many people to have it as possible in as quick as we could. And then, just to let you all know that one thing that's way different than 1918 is we had no idea what was happening in the next town, let alone in the next country or the other part of the world. And so we have electronic surveillance that we get reports from emergency rooms from 52 North Central Texas hospitals. So that way, if people were to be coming in with, say, respiratory problems that were out of the ordinary, we would get reports on this, like real-time reports. We also get reports from 10 of the ISDs, 140 schools that are watching for different influenza-like illnesses. So we have those opportunities available to us that was not available before.
And that's, and just for the court's information, that's a 24/7 operation.
Yes, real-time reporting.
That we operate through public health on the detection piece. So we're out there every day of the week, 24 hours a day doing this kind of stuff.
Right, and Metroplex hospitals, everybody's participating, not just those in Tarrant County, because the other difference between us and 1918 is people are packed in a whole lot more than they were in 1918. So if you read about 1918, things happened with service members because they were all bunked together, and now we're all on a plane flying all over the place every day. And so we've got a lot more exposure opportunities than we had in the past. We work with CDC at the airport because they have a quarantine station there to watch for people who might become ill when they're taking a plane from one of the affected areas that Dr. Parker showed you on the map. We also provide information to people about how to do home care. And that home care information is really useful for people who have lots of people who are homesick. I could have someone home with strep throat, and that hand hygiene is just as important then. So we provide that training. Social distancing measures, you all heard about this when the plans for pan-flu first started emerging. We talked about whether or not school closures would be recommended, discouraging public gatherings, and recommending precautions for businesses and homes. For example, we've worked with people in the banking industry about how they are making changes. They don't really think about it. It's more for convenience for them. But we're like, wow, it's a lot better if people can bank without face-to-face, because if there were a pandemic, we could limit the spread. So that's an example. And, of course, if we did have something to present to the public, such as medications or vaccine, that's when we would activate those points of distribution. And last of all, I just want to share with you about the public health preparedness funding. We really didn't have any funding until after 2001, and so now we've been able to build quite a bit of infrastructure. 2006 is when we received the most funding. You see our funding for 2009 it's dropping off, but we have put a lot of things in place that we didn't have in place earlier. And for 2009, because the City of Fort Worth Health Department has been disestablished, we received some of the funding that they had, and so that's why we have a little bit of a difference in our FY09 funding. So I think that's pretty much an update on what's currently happening. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you very much.
All righty, thank you.
Another good reason not to eat chicken or birds.
No, we didn't say anything about that.
Chinese birds, yeah, especially the Chinese birds.
Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
We better get out of here before it gets too much deeper. Commissioners Court will now recess its open session and proceed to closed session to discuss items exempted under sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Local Government.
We just have one personnel item.
Well, I'm probably going to have
He's slowing. I'll leave. Y'all be stuck here all afternoon. Having returned from closed session, there being no business, we're adjourned.
I was sitting in there, I told you today, I said, you don't sit back down, let's let stuff come back in and find it. Yeah, me too, that's all I should.
Where's Commissioner?